Hello, hello, hello. Hi, this is Nuraj Javeri joining from Tales from the Field with Andreas Padilla. Hey, Andreas, how are you doing?
Great. I'm so excited about what we're going to showcase tonight. Talk to the audience. What are we showing them?
So, today we are going to be talking about analytics in a box.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.
Andreas, tell me about what type of patterns that we are following it up.
Oh, we're going to talk about pattern one tonight, but within, like you said, we built in four different patterns into this GitHub repo, into these templates. Pattern number one, what it does is it deploys Synapse, your data lake, your serverless pools, your security, your key vault, your SQL server, everything you need to just kickstart a simple, nice and easygoing Synapse environment.
Analytics in a box is a flexible framework where engineers from both Microsoft Fast Track team and the customer delivery teams work together to create which will work together and create a few effects that can be deployed over in a very quick and easy manner. It's like a hands-on experience. You can create your own templates. You can follow the patterns and then start deploying Synapse in a very easy manner. What we did over the whole period was like four patterns from small scale to a large scale industry can use it up and then deploy this up in there. It follows all the best practices, including the security and all of them. Even it's following the data platform patterns.
In another discussion, we'll talk about pattern two, and then we're going to evolve in pattern four to now bringing it all together with Delta Lake, with Data Explorer pools, with Spark pools, with Power BI, all in one, four individual, easy to deploy bicep templates. And that's what we're going to showcase right now.
Yep. And it's a Git repository. It's a public repository, so you can definitely go in there and fork yourself and start using it up. It's constantly getting updated by all the engineers. I mean, there are a group of engineers who are working on it. So yeah, go and visit the site.
For those of you out there, go to aka.ms/analytics in a box. And we've put instructions, made it as easy as possible for you to get started, build in all your dependencies, install what you need to install to get these patterns up. We've taken very green users and had them up and running with these patterns in about 20 minutes. So we're hoping right now we're going to show you what pattern one looks like, what you need to do. Okay. So let's go to aka.ms/analytics in a box, and you're going to see our repo that we put together. You scroll down, you'll start to see who's involved, the architecture behind the patterns, the available patterns that we have. We have pattern one, which we're going to talk about right now. And obviously we have pattern one, two, and three, which we'll get to in other sessions. And if you click on that source bicep folder, it'll take you to pattern one folder. And this is where the bicep and the templates live for this deployment. So that's where what we're gonna deploy today. But before you do that, the easiest way to do this is actually create a fork. And I've already forked it into my repository, Andres Padilla. So we're gonna go ahead and create another fork into Tales for the Field. And I want you to fork that over. You can call it anything you want, but analytics in the box, if you just take out that dash one, will be great. You can go ahead and create a fork. Once you're done with that fork, you'll go over to your repository, your own repository, and you'll notice that in your account, if you take a look at mine, where my repository is, you'll notice there, beautiful analytics in the box was forked into my account. So I'm up to date. I got all the latest and greatest. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open this up in Visual Studio Code. And I love working with Visual Studio Code, the debugging, the deployment, it ties in nicely with Git and Git repos. So I'm going to go ahead and clone this down to my desktop. And I'll put it in a folder called C Git. Usually I try to keep everything that comes down from Git or GitHub down into a folder called Git. So it's as close to the C's drive as possible. And in a moment or two, it'll fork. It'll download all the collateral, all the files that I need. I'll go ahead and open that up in Visual Studio Code, and a new window will pop up. And you'll notice on the left-hand side all the files and folders that you need are right there. So just give me a second, let Visual Studio Code load up again. And I want you to open up pattern 1. And that's the one we're going to work on today. We're going to work on pattern 1. But before we get to that, there are some dependencies that I need you to install. We need you to install. You're going to need to install Azure CLI. You're going to need to install Bicep. And we're going to leverage the power of Bicep. I don't know if any of you out there haven't worked with Bicep, but I definitely recommend it. It makes dealing with ARM templates so simple, so easy to use. It modularizes it. And if you open up an ARM template, it is just lines and lines of code that are in there. Bicep makes it easy to debug, work with individual deployments, modules, say, hey, I want to just work on a storage account deployment, and so on and so forth. Or the Synapse component or the Key Vault component. I can break it up, make sure those parts of the deployment are airtight, and then at the end, consolidate them into one big deployment. So if you go to pattern 1 and you scroll down, you'll notice that there are instructions for how to prepare your environment. And in pattern 1, what we're going to do is we're going to deploy your Azure Synapse Analytics Workspace, a data lake, a Key Vault, and an SQL server. This is right out of the box, a simple Synapse environment. And inside of that Synapse environment, we're going to deploy some mock pipelines, some mock Azure Data Factory pipelines. For that, make sure you go to Azure CLI and install Azure CLI onto your desktop. Make sure that's up and running. You can install on Windows, Mac. The instructions are right there. And we have a link directly to those instructions. The next step after you install Azure CLI is make sure you install Bicep onto your machine. And the easiest way to do that is there's an MSI file. Download the MSI. You will also need to install an extension, the Bicep extension, inside of your, so select the Visual Studio Code extension. Once you're done going through those installs, make sure you validate that they're installed properly by typing in AZ -- version. Make sure you have Azure CLI. Make sure that you validate that you have Bicep running and PowerShell. So all those steps are documented really nicely for you in this template. And we'll wait here we're going to go ahead and validate the Azure CLI, the Bicep, as you can see. That's what I'm typing in right now. Okay, and now let's check the AZ Bicep version is installed on my machine. Okay, beautiful. I have Bicep CLI version 0.89. I could upgrade, but I'm not going to do that just yet. I'll leave it as is. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, once that's all that's installed, we're going to visualize. The extension in Visual Studio has a Bicep visualizer that gives you a bird's level view of all the modules, all the resources that you're going to install inside of your subscription. So right now what I'm pulling up is the visualizer, the Bicep visualizer. And it's a really cool feature of the extension that lets you see all the dependencies, what resources are getting deployed. I mean, this thing is pretty sweet. The role assignments that are being deployed onto the individual services, the Key Vault you can see there, the storage account you can see there, the individual pipelines that are being installed inside of the Synapse environment. All of that is what is being installed through pattern 1. So it's a great little tool to have if you want to visualize what your Bicep's going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and close these windows. I don't think I need them anymore. Beautiful. And you will need to install the az.synapse module on your machine in order to make this work, because the AZ Synapse PowerShell module, it's in charge of installing the Azure Data Factory pipelines within the Synapse. Also, be sure to turn on and register the Microsoft.Synapse resource provider. If you go to your subscriptions and go to resource provider, you'll find that there. We've had some customers where we noticed, oh wow, their resource provider wasn't turned on, and it's a simple matter of going to the subscription, going to the resource providers, searching for Microsoft.Synapse, and just clicking the button and registering. Okay, validating my bicep version once again. And everything looks good, I believe. Beautiful. There's my PowerShell just in case. Make sure I'm up to the latest and greatest. Now for pattern 1, what I want you to do is change the directory in your terminal window to pattern 1. So all the commands should be at the root of pattern 1. So make sure you cd to pattern 1, and you're not at the root of the repository. You want to be inside of pattern 1, that directory. So we've installed Azure CLI, our dependencies. Now we've cloned our repo, of course. Now the next step that you need to do is we need you to configure some parameter file, your main.parameters.json file. And you're going to need a service principal for this. You're going to need the service principal ID. You're going to need a password for that service principal. I already have it changed on my, I'm going to go ahead and change this. But basically, if you guys haven't seen a service principal, you'll go to your Azure Active Directory. You can go to registered applications, and you can bring up that service principal. And all those configurations, the service principal, you want to put in the main.parameters file. If you scroll down below in the pattern 1 instructions in that README file, you'll notice that we gave users the ability to deploy either with PowerShell, with Azure CLI, and also with DevOps. So if you wanted to start wrapping this whole process and make it a continual deployment, you can wrap this whole process, and we gave you the instructions for doing this using YAML files with Azure DevOps pipeline. So you can evolve from a simple Azure CLI deployment to automating this whole process. So I want you to open up main.parameters.json. I also want you to open up the main.azcli. You're gonna need your tenant ID. You're gonna need your service principal ID. You're gonna need the secret for that service principal. And there's a resource group where we're gonna deploy everything. We're gonna deploy everything in a resource called P1-Analytics Fundamentals-Resource Group. I'm gonna go ahead and right-click, select all those variables, put them in session. So that's what I just did right now. They're now all in session. Nice. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and log in. You can log in interactively. You can log in. I tend to log in using the AZ login service principal method. But you could log in with the service principal. You can log in with a password, or interactively if you wanted to. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do right now. I'll select that line. I'll run that line in the terminal. And then once that's completed, hopefully that goes through rather quickly. It might take a moment or two to log in. You're going to create the resource group where you're going to deploy all your services. And like I mentioned before, we're going to create a resource group called P1-Analytics Fundamentals-Resource Group. You can call it, you can change that name if you wanted to. I'll go to my subscription, refresh it. Okay, there you can see we installed the resource group. So we have a placeholder. We have a box where we're going to install everything. And then after that, once you're done with the resource group, now, and you have all your parameters filled up, we're going to build the bicep file. So we're going to go ahead and right-click on it, run that in terminal. And what that's going to do is going to take the bicep, main.bicep file, and its underlying modules and create an ARM template for you called main.json. So all of that ARM template gets packaged up and placed inside that JSON file. And that's what you're really deploying to Azure. That's what you're going to deploy into your subscription. So Bicep made it really easy for you to package it up into one deployable ARM template, as you can see here. Here's that ARM template. It has all your goodies, everything that you need, your storage account, your key vault, your role assignments, your Synapse workspace, so on and so forth. Now in step number 3, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and deploy that. So we'll select that, we'll copy that, and then in the terminal down below, we'll go ahead and deploy that ARM template with its underlying parameter files. We'll pass those parameter files in. What you're passing in is your service principal. You're passing in password for your SQL server, the resource group name, where everything is located. And that right now, as you can see, it's starting to cook and simmer in the back end. And this process takes about can take around anywhere between 4 to 8 minutes. You know, we've seen sometimes it runs a little slower, especially if you're deploying for the first time. And if you get any of these warning signs, don't worry about them. There are some warning signs that we have in the template. Maybe we could do one of the, change out some of the variables, but nothing's really going to break for you. And that'll continue to run. And if you go into your resource group, within about a minute, you'll start to see the resources start to trickle in. So the first thing you actually deploy is a storage account. You're going to deploy that. What's happening now is it's starting to deploy your Synapse, environment. And we'll come back, refresh once again. Let's see if anything popped up. Beautiful. So the SQL server that we need is also being deployed, and all that's starting to process. Okay. Now, if you want to, you can keep refreshing, and there's also a deployments link right there, right under the refresh button. We're not going to click on it just yet, but that deployment link will tell you if all the bicep files deployed successfully. So let's start talking about this main.bicep file while that's cooking. What that main.bicep file does is, first, it gathers some global variables. It's going to install your module, your storage account. It's going to install, not in this pattern, we're not installing a VNet. In the other patterns, we will install a VNet. In this pattern, it's very simple, very, very, just a Kickstarter to accelerate, hey, let me get into Synapse world as quickly as possible. So we're installing a key vault, we're installing a storage account, we're installing the necessary keys and secrets into the key vault. You're deploying your workspace. You're also deploying the access policies for the Synapse. The Synapse workspace needs to get its hand into the key vault where we keep all our secrets. The connection string to our SQL server, the connection string to our data lake, and so on and so forth. We're going to keep those in a key vault. And Synapse, we want to give it appropriate permissions to get in there. The final thing we do is that post-deployment script. That post-deployment script, what it's doing is it's calling the artifacts.bicep file. And those artifacts are all the goodies that go inside of Synapse. Now, what are those goodies? Those goodies are connections to my data lake, my data factory pipelines. There's some integration to runtime and some other artifacts that go into a Synapse environment. And you can click through after the deployment's done. You can go ahead and click through them and see all those underlying pipelines and artifacts that are installed in your Synapse. As you can see, we refresh once again. You go to deployments. You can see that all the underlying modules, the bicep modules, were successfully deployed. The deployment for Key Vault, Synapse, Storage, SQL Server, all of those were successfully installed. Okay. And now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up our Synapse. Everything looks like it happened nice and smooth. There's our Synapse environment. Beautiful. You'll get this error that failed to load on the first load. The reason is because you have to add your user as a Synapse admin. So you'll continually get that error until you add your user as a Synapse admin. And that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to wait for our workspace to load. If you click on the tool, on the tool icon down at the bottom, and you go to access control, you'll notice that there's no access control right now. So I'm going to go ahead and add myself as a Synapse administrator. I'll look at my ID. And in a moment, usually I did that really quickly. That actually happened really quickly. You'll look for your user. And if best thing to do is after you've added yourself to this as an administrator is close down your workspace and log back in. It might take a minute or two for that setting, that administrator, those roles, that administrator role to take hold. So you want to close it down, open it back up. And if you go into back into where we were, where was access control, this might take a moment or two. Okay, looks good. We're not getting that error anymore, as you can see. Go back into access control. Beautiful. There I am. Voila. I am a Synapse administrator. I can see everything. Now, let's take a look at what was deployed, all the artifacts. Our blob storage was deployed. We have connection to our Azure Data Lake. We also installed a bronze, curated, gold, public, raw, silver containers inside that data lake. And you'll also, I want you to take a look at what's in your key vault, what's in your storage account. But all in all, that is how easy it is to deploy this pattern one and get started with Synapse. I mean, it took, I think, all in, end to end, maybe 15, 20 minutes if we counted up all the seconds here in Raj.
20 minutes. Yep, it took less than 20 minutes.
That's it, you guys.
20 minutes and you have the Synapse environment up and running. What else do you need it, right? I mean, it's that's easy it is.
We got pattern 2 and 3 and 4 coming. So
pretty soon. See you all.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
It's gonna be a good day. Wake up. Today's 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 gonna be a good day. Yo. Set your affirmations, aspirations. I got shit to do, the aftermath of preparation. Good food, good mood, blood in circulation. One step at a time, yeah, that's how you make it. Set a goal you control and the steps you take them. I try to pick one thought, have some concentration. And if I make a mistake, it's called education. I try to do this every day, call it replication. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up. 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 Today's gonna be a good day. So life ain't easy, yo. I think there's a reason, though. Ups and downs, just like every different season, yo. Sometimes I'm high, other times I'm barely breathing, though. I always gotta fight and hide from the demons, yo. Negative thoughts are poison, they rot. Head full of flies, so here come the clouds. They'll never stop unless I can swap all the bad for the good in my head when I'm lost. Yeah, so I'ma fake it till I make it. Positive thoughts are overtaken, I got patience. One day at a time is how you operate a cadence. A flow, you grow, you show yourself a foundation. Stay away from all the shit that causes temptation. I know that I like to do it cause it's sensation. I live my life in my head like a narration. Don't expect greatness, do my best, man, I'll take it. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up. 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 Today's gonna be a good day.